But you see, okay, I'm not going to do what I've just do it in your room. Then we practice it again Wednesday morning. I did every single one of them, just perfect for me. I just do it when I do it. I just pretend there was nobody there. I pretend there was nobody there. It is a good strategy, but pretend there were nobody there. Just pretend there were nobody in front of you. Just do whatever you do. That's what I do. I pretend there were nobody.
Who don't already know who I am, I'm a member of the council and board of the Community Living Ontario. Welcome to the Family Engagement, Connected Family with a Vision pre-conference session. Our speaker this morning is Leah Trewan, Ingrid Ensign Younger, and Lori Franson. We hope you enjoy the session and hope that the information presented will be continue to support you and build your knowledge and understanding.
Good morning. Is that good? Okay. So hopefully we do that as well. I'll start with talking about family engagement and how it is defined by Community Living Ontario. Family engagement has kind of taken on a few definitions over the years, and Community Living Ontario defines it as a focused and intentional approach for organizations to build capacity among and with families, enabling organizations to reconnect and learn from families and stay relevant to families. Family engagement is not a program or a service delivery. It's not a good event or presentation for families without facilitated extended and helpful conversation following an event, and it's not a new way. It does require solid framework based on clearly defined values and principles. As an intentional approach, it's intended to facilitate and inspire families to come together and explore innovative ideas, share and exchange helpful resources or practices, and respond to current practices and services that are not helpful. It does orchestrate space to share ideas and concepts with families and offers families the opportunity to exchange their own experiences and knowledge. It does support families to make connections with other families and to be strengthened by one another. It may create solidarity around advocacy efforts on particular issues and sometimes cause division among people in terms of what people think is the right way or the best way to approach a situation or issue. And again, it's not a new way or a quick fix to resolve a problem or simply a good one-off event. Family engagement is an approach which we hope this session will illustrate what it is and requires of organizations. However, perhaps most importantly, a reminder of how we essentially developed our identity as a movement. We want to be clear that family engagement is not merely what we want to do, but essentially who we are as a movement. Community Living Ontario was established back in 1953 by family members. In fact, mothers around a kitchen discussing their concern that their children who had a disability did not have a right for education, as did their other children. It was parents who were the focal point for the disability movement. The role families have played in the community living movement has been essential to ensure vitality, commitment, and influence from the beginning, whether locally, provincially, or nationally. Virtually all local associations had, as their founding members, families who understood the importance of working together to accomplish things that they knew they could not do alone. The history of this movement is the story of families that gathered together to challenge the status quo and each other, advocate for human rights and equal opportunities for their family members, and develop a variety of services and supports through local efforts. This family-led movement, originating in small meetings across the province, would eventually and radically alter the landscape with the advent of institutional closures, governmental declarations of human rights and freedoms for people with disabilities, person-centered approaches to service and support, and a more inclusive nature to our communities. Understanding the community living movement's history, and in particular its rootedness in the shared experience of families, is necessary to grasp the reason for much of the movement's success. Families, which include a person with a disability, parents, brothers and sisters, extended family, and longtime friends, were recognized as being most important in a lifelong journey that was often marked by vision and risk-taking. Family involvement provided the moral authority to the movement in its efforts to promote and protect the interests and rights of people with a disability and their families, and as we came to understand, could not be duplicated in any other form of representation. Okay, that's the driest part of the day, I promise. It is a good part, it's just saying it all is like the hardest part for me. But the best part actually is that Community Living Ontario sees family engagement as a way to ensure that the voice of families is central to our organizational efforts and requires a place that is valued and embedded in organizational structure and practice. We ask that as you listen to how Community Living Ontario has approached family engagement over the past decade, that you reflect on your organization's experiences of family engagement. How are families supported to have a place, space, and tools needed to strengthen, empower, and cultivate a vision for their family members? How does that influence your organization's structure and practices? So over the past 10 years, I'll start with, in the past 10 years, in 2008, a small group of seasoned families, for lack of a better term, came together. Their task was to reflect on what was helpful as family members to them over the years. In their conversations, it was noted that the thing that strengthened them the most was knowing and being known by other families. It was this contribution shared by these family members that steered the work Community Living Ontario did with family engagement. This small group, in collaboration with Kimberly Gavin, who was the Director of Community Development, created a framework based in the values and principles of social role valorization. From this framework, a retreat-style family leadership series was launched. The series was held in Aurelia and hosted by the small group of families who, as I mentioned, in partnership with Community Living Ontario. A series consisted of 3 weekends. Each weekend had a theme, guest speakers, conversation, and time designed for fellowship. Over the course of 8 years, 54 families participated. During the 10-year period, we also partnered with local membership organizations who ran year-long engagement projects. You can learn more about this there was a report put together on the family engagement series, as well as the projects that were carried on. 2 years ago, we held a family leadership series made available to families who were part of the 54 families who had been part of the Aurelia series. 20 families came together for a 4-weekend-long series, which provided an overview of SRV and also offered a practical on-site review of a couple of service programs. We currently have 3 partner associations working with us on creating opportunities to bring families together. Not in the same retreat-style series, but holding space for families to connect with one another, get information, and share knowledge. The group of seasoned families that came together over 10 years ago has since grown to include a few more family members and has now become officially become an advisory committee to Community Living Ontario's Board of Directors. That small group of seasoned family also, in attending, they were very, I don't know how to say this, they were the core steering committee. They made a commitment to being alongside families at all of the events in Aurelia. They were mentors to the families at the weekends, and made a huge commitment in all of the series. That was the hard part for me. I have been a part of the family engagement series, family series since the beginning, so probably in 2010, my family was invited to attend, and we came to the event because of an invitation from one of the women that was on that core steering committee. We trusted her, and she basically said to come and really didn't know why, and we said okay. And the agenda wasn't really set out. It was just kind of come and be with other families, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. And we were exposed to ideas that sometimes I'm kind of ashamed to say turned our world upside down. It was like we were given permission and the map to a new way of thinking about our son, a way that I think sometimes we should have just been thinking to begin with. A lot of families, ourselves included, we all came together because of the commonality of disability, but we grew together through the many opportunities we are given to consider what a good, safe, secure, and full life could be for all of our family members, like not just our family member with a disability, but everyone in our family. I had something else. I asked my daughter, who at the time when we started the family engagement series in 2010, so she would have been 10, she's now 19, how it impacted her, because we not only did the one family series, we kind of followed through on a few others, introduced other families to it that you'll hear from these women. And she said, spending my time outside of the workshops with others gave me early and consistent exposure to an inclusive environment that I otherwise didn't experience in elementary school, and especially not in high school. And I thought, she really couldn't, when I asked her to give examples of how it impacted her, she really couldn't give concrete examples of things that she did, but it really spoke to where we live, how segregated our schooling is when it came to people with disabilities. And I thought, I was so happy that she saw those weekends as being so inclusive, because at the time when we were attending them, I used to kind of say, it's funny, we're talking about inclusion, yet we're going away to these kind of segregated weekends, but in her mind, they were inclusive events, and that really opened up my eyes to the fact that they were inclusive, because they were all, it was the whole family, it was people, it was the people that were helping to share, well, the speakers that we had, the people that were watching over our kids, there was just so many abilities and people from all different parts of their journey. I've probably never been in a more inclusive environment. And it was really cool to hear her say that and recognize that. So yeah, 19 is pretty smart. And my husband, I asked him for a quote, and he said, "Everything in the disability world feels very isolating and alienating for most families. But being a part of the series gave us the opportunity to connect with people that understood and to have conversations that freed us of the feeling of going it alone against the world." And that's exactly how we felt all along through the series, as well as since. We've connected, whether locally or online or just at a distance from people that we only see once in a while. We know that we're not going it alone, and there are people that understand, and it has made a huge difference in how we have raised our son and how we are as a family and how we relate to the rest of the world. So enough about me. Oh, my pictures, I completely forgot. So those were just some pictures from in Aurelia. So this would have been the kids or even adult children would go and enjoy Geneva Park while the adults would go to a workshop. So this was a picture of some of the adults. And then that's my daughter, the blonde, way on the left in the younger years. And this was just over the years, some of the fun that we had in the different seasons. It's my family up there. Oh, that's my two little ones there. They're now 18 and 19. And they just felt so safe. We felt safe letting them just go and do whatever they wanted to do in all weather. That was a big deal. I'm pretty sure that's my son in the front there, who he calls exercise the E word. So the fact that they got him out there doing that, that's why there's a picture. In fact, I think all of the parents were like this against the glass that day, because none of us could believe our kids were out there doing things. And that's it, right? And so now you will hear from Ingrid.
Hi, so my name's Ingrid, and this is Leia. We're part of the family series too. And first I was going to mention that a fundamental part of the series was the educational piece we received. A few examples of the themes we had from the series were disability is natural, focus on the gifts, the contributions, avoid the word special, identify the essence of the person, relationships and community, natural resources, safe places to be, safeguard, of course, inclusion. And how do we tell the story and share the narrative of our family and the people in our lives? And vision, knowing what you want, you know what's best, directing others to let you know what you want, and that anything's possible. So this is my family. We started the series in 2012. My kids grew up knowing the series. My son was 3 and my daughter was 5, and they're 13 and 11 now. I was invited by Lori. We knew each other through another organization. The series gave me a solid foundation of learning to become the advocate I wanted for my daughter. And it also gave me opportunities to be with like-minded people that support your beliefs. And everyone was on different parts of their journey, which was a really good part of that, because somehow we all ended up crossing paths. So we were given time to fully dedicate ourselves to the learning, which doesn't happen always for families. And our kids were taken care of, enjoyed activities like what I was saying that we never experienced before. And as you can see, here's more skiing, because she was right. We all were up against the window looking at our kids. We stopped the presentation. And it was just the safety of if something didn't go as planned and one of our kids needed us, it was just fine, and no one judged or cared. We were also given the opportunity to continue the conversations after the lessons of the day, which was a really important key to that. And it was in a social environment, and our kids were creating new friendships, and it was a great day when I'd hear my daughter ask if she wanted to sit with us for dinner, and she's like, no, I got my own friends to sit with. So, you know, that was a new experience for families too, just our kids didn't want to be with us. And just, there's no judgment. And you can see actually how young my kids were when they started, and a little older. So as a mother, that's my daughter Caitlin, it's given me the knowledge I need to support her. Using the education we obtained from the speakers, it gave me a foundation of how to express what I was already thinking. For example, the school thought Caitlin should be in a segregated classroom, and for me, I just felt for her it was best to be in an inclusive program. So being around people with the same values, it was like, of course, that's what you want, and it wasn't questioned, it was supported. I found too, when we met with the series, it wasn't so focused on the disability, and it was definitely not about specifics of each person's disability. It was just more of how we can make our families' lives more fulfilling. We took the can-dos, and the can'ts weren't talked about so frequently. We learned, I took back from what I learned, and I shared it with people in my lives, professionally and personally. And we looked forward to updates from the families. Like, we didn't necessarily see each other that often, but when we did, it was good. And even if we talked about the good things, that was great, and not so great things, it was still, there was no judgment, you didn't fail or anything like that. So it was always just very encouraging to each other. And then I also, if I'd gone away and kind of fell back into the can't do world, then I was thrown right back into, no, it's good, you can. So this picture, there's two pictures actually I love of Caitlin. So for her, I always believe she can. So up here is the Science Center. She wanted to, and then she got really upset and nervous and wouldn't do it. So in the end, if you look at her face, she had an amazing time. And rock jumping at our cottage, Paul was there to catch her. It took a lot of encouraging. She never did it again. She didn't like it. But she knew she could do it, and that was the important part. So this is my son, her brother. In our house, we never compare. Fair is everyone getting what they need. So William has a vast interests. He is kind of a math geek. He's very, education focused. But when it comes to his sister, they never look at each other and compare these kind of things. So once William and Caitlin were asked questions about disability, and William was asked, what was it like to have a sibling? So one of the questions was, what if Caitlin didn't have autism? What do you think that would look like? And he said, well, Caitlin wouldn't have Catch, so we wouldn't have a dog. So Catch is Caitlin's autism assistance dog. So that was the first thing he thought of. He didn't think of anything else. Another story was he came out of school the one day and he's like, Mom, who's the most popular kid in school? And I'm like, who? My sister. He's like, everyone says hi to her. He said, I think the second most popular person is Catch, her dog. And he goes, I think I'm third because people say hi to me when I'm with her, right? So it was just nice to see his perception of his sister and what he thinks. And this is how Caitlin loves to support her brother. He does a lot of activities, and she eats her favorite chocolate and drinks hot chocolate. So that's just her support. Caitlin's learned to advocate a lot, and the conversations we had in the series flowed into our regular lives. So I've encouraged her she speaks a lot about service dogs in schools because she has her dog at school, and she's very passionate about it. So she's actually spoke to SEAC, Special Education Advisory Committee, for our board. She's done presentations for fundraisers. This was a golf tournament, and that's Fergie Jenkins. He's a baseball player, a Canadian baseball player, retired. So on one of the series, we focused on what is our child's best qualities, and what do they love, and what can they do in the future. So anyone that knows Caitlin knows she loves sensory stuff. So we ended up putting together an online store of sensory items. And so she is the expert, so why not have her? She loves telling people she owns her own business. She's only 13, breaking the stereotypes. And she comes out of her shell more at the shows. She also has a nap, because that's Caitlin as well. Every time you'll find her sleeping like that somewhere, but she's very proud of it. So she's learned different parts of the business as well. She's doing inventory, she's setting up, cleaning up, and she explains items to people when they want. She also does reviews. So I'm just going to show you a little clip of one of the reviews she does, just on different products. So we'll just set that up. Yeah, what kind of ball do you have?
A DNA ball.
And what's DNA?
Don't you know the cells that actually goes in your? It's actually a part of your brain that actually like squishing your brain.
Oh, and
And this is the brain, and all these balls are cells.
Okay.
And DNA.
And let's see, what do you love about this ball?
Look, it has pink.
Oh, pink. Yeah.
Green, blue, and purple.
What does it feel like?
Oh my God, it's just so squishy and stretchy.
It's stretchy.
Tough.
It's fun, isn't it?
And all kinds of stuff here.
Nice. So that's just what she does. She also decides she wants to be a YouTube person when she grows up. So, and my kids laugh because this is Master Shifu from Kung Fu Panda. I love the quote, if you only do what you can do, you will never be more than you are now. And now it's Claire's turn.
Morning. So when asked months ago if I would consider sharing my story, the experience with community living family engagement that I intended several occasions with my family, there was no hesitation because through my experience I've learned that our stories connect us and my experience may just impact somebody's life and challenge you to think differently or be inspired to take a piece of today back home with you. So Brene Brown doesn't come right out of our conference, but she's been a huge piece in my life. And standing here today demanded me to look at my own life, reflect over 10 years of my life. And there's a lot that happens in a decade that we all know, right? Life happens fast. And when you're living in the moment, you're just making the best decision that you can, and you're having those experiences. But when we can take the time to honestly reflect and share that experience with somebody, I think we can have some really rich conversations. So here's my brute. I'm a mom of 6 kids. Sorry. So that's my husband and me at the top. This is my oldest son, Ethan. He's 18. He's now graduated from high school, and he's just taking a year off. And truly, I thought I lost him last year because high school, social peers, you wonder where they're going. And he came to me and had that conversation of, I'm not ready to go to high school. And it's like, all right, what's this going to look like for you? And he had to wrestle with some ideas. Because at our house, you're not going to just sit back on the sofa and think that life's going to be served to you. So he had to think of a plan. He wasn't just not going to do something right now, right? So we had a lot of conversations, and we're still having conversations. And I know we're only a few weeks into school now this year, but I feel like I have a piece of my teenager back, because he said to me the first week that the kids were back in school, Mom, come meet me for lunch. Let me take you for lunch. And so he was wrestling with some ideas, and the conversation that he can have now, I'm just like, okay, this is what parenting is about, right? We struggle and we wrestle with ideas. We wonder if we're doing a good job, but when you can have a conversation with your kid, you know something's going to happen. So next in line is Holden. He's going to be 15 this year, and he doesn't care about school either. He truly doesn't. But, so my kids were all homeschooled and went back to school within the last 3 to 5 years, depending on the kid. He transferred, so we're in a Catholic system here, my kids. So he went back when it was junior high for the opportunity of socially engaging with kids, right? Which is kind of tricky when you're homeschooling. So that opportunity was everything to him. And he's continuing. He had the opportunity to not go back in high school, and
he wouldn't even think twice about the social aspect of going to school now. So he does well. He does really well in school, but like that is not a priority. And if you ask him about it, all he wants to talk to you about is connecting with kids and what they're planning and where they're going, and he's happy. Here on the bottom corner is Camden. So Camden's still homeschooled, and I wrestle with that because I believe in full inclusion, but that is a huge battle that we are not on the winning side of right now. And but he's extremely successful being homeschooled. And here you can see he's with his tablet, and that is new. It's not even a year into his life now, but he's engaging people as opposed to the aggressive behaviors that you used to see where he would pull hair or scream at the top of his lungs, right? Like, and this story comes from just last night. Paul and Ingrid were over at our house because they're from Southern Ontario, and here comes my son sitting down at the table, and he's just engaging them, right? Like about camping. He loves going camping, and I didn't include, like, how do you pick pictures, right, to share with you guys? But he wanted to talk about how he gets to ride his bike at camp, and he just could have a conversation with two people that truly don't spend a lot of time with him, and I'm just grateful that he's working forever on that aspect. Nolan is 10, and Nolan is truly just so curious and wants to take everything that he comes into apart or understand how and why, and he's just filled with so many questions that he just keeps me on my toes. Elise, oh, she's a redhead, and she doesn't miss a beat, but she just brings such a different energy that's not my energy. But when you can enter a moment with her, she opens my eyes up, because I'm telling you, she's not me. Like, she sees the world totally different, and she wants to talk about everything. And I like to cover up my emotions, and she's just like, I'm wearing those on my sleeve, and this is how I feel about that. So you got to embrace her, right? And then Zoe's my 7, almost 8-year-old, and oh my gosh, she's just alongside with her brothers, and she is so busy, so busy. She's the one egging on those boys to climb on the roof. They're going to jump off of that. We're going to do this, and we're going to... She keeps me very busy in her own way. So my family comes out of homeschooling. It comes out of finding understanding in everything that's around us. 10-10-10 is not mine. I'm not going to claim that at all. It's just something that works for us, and we've come to adapt around our family. We're very outdoor people, and so this joy here comes. I got a million of them. This year our word is joy. Last year our word was love. And to us as a family, my kids are constantly finding these little items that they can see the alphabet in, and this year are focusing on joy, and we're having our conversation about what joy is at our family, what that looks like for us. And so 10-10-10 has become a lesson that I brought out of going to the family engagement activities, because what we constantly heard was, you got to get real. If you're going to go the long run with being a mom, you need to know what you're fighting for. You need to know what's important to you, and you need to wrestle with those ideas, because when the shit comes down, pardon my language, I'm going to be real with you, we know that stuff's going to happen. And you need to wrestle, and you need to measure up. And this is what's worked for us. I measure up with 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years. When I have to make that decision, what's the impact for us, right? For my family, for the individual, my child that I'm making that decision with. And so what's come out of joy for our family, the defining that we work around, which is a priority to us this year. We have not decided our word for next year, but right now, with 10-10-10, when we choose, it's about joy. And so what brings our family joy is when we're laughing and when we're together and connected, right? It's simple. It's simple. So if I'm going to choose something, make a choice that's going to impact our life in 10 minutes, 10 months, or 10 years, it's just something that helped me make it simple, because when you're wrestling with those ideas, sometimes you feel like you're drowning and you just want that buoy to be thrown to you, but there's no one there, right? So if you can get in your own head and just calm down and you can get right with that, it's been what's got me here today. So something that came out of attending the time there was SRV. I have never taken the formal training for that. I'm not going to preach to social role valorization, but it was something that I explored and came to a very basic understanding that has carried me through also to where we are today, which for me is at the core of, they go hand in hand with citizenship. And to us as a family, these two are pivotal in the decisions and where we go in community and the connections we make every day, right? And so I'm not going to tell you you got a one-time checklist to achieve citizenship, because that is not happening, guys. You make an investment in citizenship because it matters to you, and you need to be mindful about where you're showing up and how you're making contributions, how you're positioning your loved one to be where he is, right? Where I'm not going to tell someone what you're going to get from my son when he's present, but I'll encourage you on a contribution that I can feel that he could make to that space. But if he's not feeling it, if it's not a natural thing, you may experience something totally different from him. But that's our responsibility, to present them in a light where people feel, okay, I know where they can go. I know how I can talk to them. I know what we can do. I know what that can look like. People need to feel like they can connect to our loved one. So if we're talking from a deficit place, talking from, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Oh, people don't know how to, they know how to relate to that, but they're not going to feel connected, right? So we need to share all those positive things that we've come to know and love about our individual, so someone else feels, okay, I know where I can help. I know what we can do, right? Oh, you like your hot chocolate, but you don't want to sit down and have it. We're going to go to the beach with that, right? Like, who can't relate to that? Some people will. Some people will find something else. But those are the natural connections that we need to nurture as a parent. So we're a life of experiences. We make choices every day, my husband and I, to live this life. We go to Florida every year for 3 weeks, because when we're in Florida as business owners, we don't do business. We do family, and we're very, very intentional about that time. And we made this shift with that heavy intention 5 years ago, and it is the best decision my family has ever made to nurture us as a family and come back and connect with the rest of our community and show up in places that people don't sometimes expect people with disabilities to be, and say, hey, you know what? We belong here, just like you do. It may look different for us, but we are here. So in my personal journey, I have become an unencumbered independent facilitator. From my experience, everything, it's the connections that have come along the way that have just driven my life to this place that we're at now. And today, you're filling out paperwork as a parent. They want to know how they can support you, and that support's going to come because you're in crisis or because you need support in a specific way, and they're going to throw you that boy that comes around one specific need. And I don't like that framework, and independent facilitation has given me tools to walk alongside other families and say, there's something different, there's something more to this, and I think we need to have those conversations. And that's what's possible. Anything. I'm telling you today, anything. Please don't put a cap on your loved ones. Don't limit them. Let them be and watch them grow and interact and follow that. You go down a path that's not going to work out, but that's not different for anybody else who's living life. So we try something different, we look at it different. But I want people to just pause for a minute and think, when you're doubting yourself or doubting your loved one, what am I going to do? Create opportunities. Give them the chance to experience something that someone else might be telling you, oh no. The more people that are telling you no, you need to try that. You need to see if that's going to work for the person that you're supporting. Because barriers aren't going to get us to a full life. So, paths and maps. I met Jack and Linda Pierpoint at one of the times in Aurelia, and they truly were the pivotal point in changing my entire course of my life. And so part of that training was you needed to experience graphic recording, and some people had to volunteer to be graphic recorded. And so I did that. I was the person who volunteered having their mapped out. So it truly changed my life and was instrumental in coming back and finding the value in community for people to have the opportunity to experience just that, the opportunity to think differently and what's possible. And so something else that we found really, really critical, because sometimes it gets really overwhelming, is we celebrate. We celebrate finishing a book because we picked a harder reading level. We celebrate, we approach that other kid in the cafeteria, but we need to acknowledge those things where we're stretching ourselves so that we can continue to stretch ourselves. So as a family, we celebrate. We celebrate everything. And there's times and occasions where it's a bigger celebration, but I think we need to pause and acknowledge that in everyone, because everyone is trying to be a good person. Sometimes we just fumble. This was a last-minute story that I just absolutely had to include. He constantly amazes me with this tablet and the language that he's beginning to use and using it in an appropriate context. So I thought I was safe. You can see I'm having a cup of coffee and half the pie. Yeah, I ate it all that morning, but it was just that kind of morning. And so he says to me, oh my gosh, Mom, on his tablet, right? I'm like, yep, and I'm not sharing it today, buddy. This is all mine. So then he goes, I need a hug. You guys, he doesn't need a hug. He wants to get close to my pie to steal it. I said, I'll give you that hug as soon as I've done my pie. But this opportunity, I'm not going to lie to you, it comes from a lot of work. But these moments when we can celebrate him communicating and exploring language and interacting with other people, I would live all those stressful moments over again to see how successful he can be now. Because we're not closing doors on him. we're pushing those doors open.
Okay, so the reason Leia and I are kind of standing here together, we were just asked to talk about the friendship we've created from the series. Leia lives here in Thunder Bay. I live in the Niagara area. We would never have met without the series. We actually probably wouldn't have met if someone, Kimberly, didn't just actually sit us down and go, you guys need to talk. Okay, goodbye. It was really awkward, quite honestly, but not for you, for us. But since then, we've just grown from there. So this was my first trip to Thunder Bay in 2013, and that was how her kids greeted me.
So we met because of family engagement opportunity, but very quickly we connected on so many levels and have nurtured a friendship that looks past the faults because we're human and we fumble, both of us, but there is huge value in today's fast world for picking up that phone and just saying, this sucks, and being met with the warmth of, you don't have to explain what's going on, you don't have to go into the whole back history, because they just get it, and they're gonna listen to you, and sometimes it's a phone call filled with tears, or it's a phone call with laughter, right? Because you just need those moments to know you're not alone, to continue in this journey, right? Ingrid and I are very intentional about our friendship. It takes a lot of work, but I'll come back, or I guess we can say this. Brene Brown, right? She's brought light to the vulnerability that just to live is, and friendship demands vulnerability. You need to go there, but when you get there and you can be honest with somebody and you're not pretending and you've taken your mask off, it's truly a blessing to have that kind of friend who will walk beside you. Where did they all go? I don't know what I did, but I'm going all the way back. And I just love Brene Brown. You don't need to read this whole quote. I could leave it up there for a minute. But Theodore Roosevelt made this quote specifically. But it's about being in the arena. And we all end up there when we're doing that stretch, right? But you need to know people will always pass judgment. They always will, for whatever reason. But you need to listen to those people who you let come into the arena with you and who are there and who are real. That's the opinions that matter. Those are the people that are going to go forward with you.
So, interestingly enough, we actually met a few times in Florida, not here. First, Paul and I drove down for Leia's wedding, and then we actually, both our families were there at the same time, so we made sure to get us all together and had some fun. Leia's come to Toronto a few times. There's more pictures than just that, but there was just a few quick ones there. And then I came up to Thunder Bay for March break. Oh, no, sorry, this was a summer visit. Yeah. So my kids have been here twice. So when we go out, there are 8 of us, as you can see them all there. And yeah, we've gone hiking and just all sorts of things up here. And then March break, we were just here. And my son went skiing. The other kids hung out at the house. So we all just did what we were really enjoying. And of course, Persians, if you're not from here, you need to get a Persian before you go home. It's a donut, so.
A very sweet delicacy.
Yeah, from Thunder Bay. So this quote, or noun, actually, my first visit here, we were having breakfast, and this was from, actually at the restaurant, I saw this term called Sisu. So it's extraordinary determination, courage, and resoluteness in the face of extreme adversity, an action mindset which enables individuals to reach beyond their present limitations, take actions against all odds, and transform barriers into frontiers. An integral element of the Finnish culture and its universal capacity, which we all share. So that's what was on our t-shirts you see and stuff. So this has kind of been our little motto. So, yeah.
So after all that, we've actually learned something. Not just as families, but Community Living Ontario, again, referring to, there are copies here if you want of this document, and it has, I think at the end, a list of what Community Living Ontario has learned through the work that it's been doing through family engagement. I'll just list a few things, but I wanted to note, and having heard Nick Mazie, is it Nick Mazie, this morning, I was just kind of, when he asked a couple of questions, I forget exactly what the two questions were, at our table I said, we can't answer those because that's part of our session later, and I don't want to spoil the answers for everybody. But it was just, I thought, it's the same learning that's happening everywhere, whether it's in community, whether it's families, whether it's organizations. I mean, I think the answers are the same. We're all coming up with what we learn is the same thing, that families or communities are strengthened when they're brought together in a dedicated space, and that the conversations, and Leah said it about families too, about relationships, that's intentional, created for reflection and sharing. In particular with Community Living Ontario and the families, that it's intentionally created for reflection and sharing with the company of other families. Establishing a common set of principles and values must provide the basis for all discussions, and in the case of the family engagement series, it was based around the principles and values of SRV. Skilled facilitation is one of the most critical aspects of the work, and I think a lot of the projects that were held in the different associations found that as well. Otherwise, you were just doing events and nothing was coming out of them. When given permission and support to dream, families are able to craft a powerful and positive vision of good lives for their family members. I know we and Ingrid and Leah certainly can speak to, and did, and have spoken to all of that. When families are supported to articulate what a good life can look for their loved one, they no longer envision that life built within service. Instead, they see the role of service as a tool they may or may not need in order to achieve and safeguard that good life. An example of that right now is my son just turned 18, and we have a whole new world kind of falling on us right now. And we have an appointment coming up with, I don't even know what, something to do with the DSO. And they want to meet and talk about the different programs and stuff available to us. And I want to go just because, I'm in this and I like to hear the stuff people like to say. And it's just so nice to be in the mindset to say, we get to choose. It's not, and there might be something good in what's being offered, but it's a tool. It's not the life that is being offered to us. It's a tool that's being offered. And that's what another thing that has come out of the family engagement series and the learning that we've had is that mind shift for families. And families are eager to not only connect with each other, but are willing to stand alongside and be active participants in creating those good lives with one another. And Leah and Ingrid are a perfect example of that. There are so many examples, but they're one right in front of you. So again, that is all in here. It's a great document, and I don't think I have anything else left to say. If there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Thank you, everyone, for coming, by the way. And
when you invited families to attend the family engagement, did you find a lot of families balked at the opportunity to come? Because we frequently offer opportunities for families to get together to talk about, things that they want to learn about, to connect with each other, and nobody shows up. So I didn't know if you guys have any suggestions on how we can get more families to come together in our community.
Well, I think one sort of interesting part of the leadership, like the series, was I didn't have to find anyone to take care of our kids. Sometimes that could be difficult, so they were just included. The people that took care of our kids were we just were very comfortable with that. So they took away that part of it, and that's a huge part, I think, for people. It became a safe place, and I think because another family member asked us, like Lori asked me, so it wasn't necessarily like community living didn't reach out to me and say, do you want to come? So I almost felt special, but whatever, like you feel like, oh, I'm chosen for that then, right?
Okay.
So I think that helps us want to come out more. And then just knowing it was a certain amount of time, and then also knowing like, it's like a mini vacation. I know that sounds
Right.
kind of silly, but it was just a nice way to connect with our family again, learn, and just the whole weekend was just nothing to worry about.
Okay.
yeah, I think what Ingrid said, totally the fact that, I was invited by someone that it was a trusted friend. And I knew that she wouldn't invite me to something where my kids wouldn't be safe.
Oh,
and the
right.
barriers were all removed. Like, we're going to give you gas money to get there. It was at a time when the kids were small, so they're going to be taken care of. Everyone's going to have fun. You're not going to cook for 2 days. That would have gotten me
That's
there.
a
I wouldn't
big
even
one.
have cared if
Okay.
the kids were safe, to be honest. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But, all the barriers were taken away, and there'll be other families, to be with, kind of
Okay.
thing. And it was, I think that's the key, not that it didn't come from an association, because in my mind, every time an association, you would think, well, okay, what are they going to want? Or, am I going to have to volunteer?
Oh,
You know,
okay.
like, it kind of had a catch to it, or a service feel to it if
Right.
if that invite felt like it came from that. Not that they couldn't be involved, but the invite needed to be,
A little bit more personal?
yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
I think, did you have a question? No, I did. Okay, I thought I saw your hand. Did you, so? Oh, okay.
That's a very interesting presentation that you've made. I was involved in one of those too up in Aurelia when they first started. It's a great job, and I've also think that the Canadian Association has put out these feelers as well. The question that I have for you is, has there anything been done similar to this by your local association? Have there been any efforts from your local association to reach out to you and get you involved in similar kinds of activities?
Yes, actually, through the same source of funding, I guess, the Community Inclusion Initiative, some local associations in the province were given the opportunity. I was involved in one, actually, in our area, Welland Pelham, and we actually tried to almost recreate an Aurelia-type series with a weekend getaway. We tried one, and it didn't do very well. we've also had one-off kind of events. This was all before this came out and we had all the answers, just so you know. I think we know kind of a lot of the reasons why ours didn't work. And each of the different associations that tried different things, I don't know that anyone's tried to recreate this exact kind of thing where you go away for 3 or 4 weekends. I think part of why this one worked, people went like a distance to get away. I think that's a really big deal. Like when we did it in Welland, people went 20 minutes away to a retreat. And I think you still are living your life when you're only going 20 minutes away, and that's what people were continuing to do. And so it didn't take on that feeling of going away and really bonding with people that you were gone away with. You know what I mean? 'Cause you're still tied to everything you were trying to do every day. There have been quite a few efforts the past few years in different ways by different associations. There have been a lot of different things being done, family engagement-wise. So that's kind of a big answer. Linda could probably give you more detail on some of the projects, right? Or, well, a lot of it's in here too.
Yeah. I mean, there's been over the past 10 years, specifically related to the initiative, like that's where we had the funding that enabled us to do the work. There were 10 locals participating in doing work, and the intention was families would come back from being part of a series, wanting to continue having conversations and wanting to be alongside with other families where they could be continuing the conversations. And, you know, it's very hard. It's like anything. Sometimes you go to a really wow kind of, you know, event or workshop series and you want to be continuing the conversation. It's hard to go back and be able to sort of share all of that in one, you know, at once, and then, you know, so it was a relationship. So families were really interested in being able to go back, be in partnership with their local to sort of reignite the conversation. And so that could happen in a variety of different forms. It wasn't about recreating, but continuing the conversation more locally with other families. Because that seemed to be really important, that people, you know, it wasn't about just creating this a special group, you know, with a certain amount of people to continue and stay in the conversation. It was about people needing to go back home and carrying the conversations on with others. And the idea is, it's not a conversation on their own. There's a real interest for families to know that their locals want to be part of that, but not directing that. So sometimes we often talked about, like with Community Living Ontario, when we were sort of facilitating the time of families coming together, we sometimes referenced our interest to be stepping out of the way. So a fine example was just shared by these guys when they said that Kimberly said, you know what, you two need to talk, and she walked away. The idea that we don't have to be directing the conversation all the time. Sometimes it's important for us to be thinking about what conversations we think might be important at particular times and sort of steer that, but finding ways of how do we sort of support it without getting in the way. And sometimes it was kind of talked about as having that invisible hand. How do you sort of be with people without taking over that space? It's a tricky thing.
And I just want to add that takes time, right? Like, it wasn't until we were asked to do this and you look back on that it was a decade and you reflect that what they did was they planted seeds, right? And when you have a young family, and we came back, I'm not going to deny, with a passion to do something here, and we did some one-offs with community living support, but now's the time. Now's the time when your children get to a place that they're not hanging off of you anymore, where you can consider what that looks like going forward, what you can give back to community. So I think you need to not be quick in judging, if you are reaching families, the value in planting those seeds, right? Because what you're doing is throwing that fertilizer, throwing the seeds in hopes that you're going to ignite something. And for some people, it's the opportunity now, and they will carry it forward. But time, right? And they may just, and with more exposure, if you keep bringing them back and offering them more soil, more information, you don't know where that's going to go for somebody, right?
I have like a comment. I'm really gonna learn from this story.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And see right there, so, you know, we've planted a seed. Something as small as the people that you have met with, maybe you don't know what's come out of it. I kept my daughter in an inclusive classroom. It's big things, but small things that we don't necessarily tell each other all the time. So you might be helping out more than you think. You know, like some people aren't as open about it, that's all.
I just got a comment. I think from what you guys are doing, it's going to help people to realize that there are services out there for them. Because there are, like in my community where I'm from Atikokan, we have some people that don't realize the services that community living offer because they're afraid to let their child or grown-up child engage in those activities. So I think what you guys are doing is very encouraging.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for sharing. It was great to listen to the stories. I think something that's important to say, too, is the opportunity that for us to bring people together in the Family Leadership Series was a little different because we were not a service provider offering a menu of service. And so people came to the weekends really about, through relationship. All of the invitations were very thought out and through relationships. And then those were built on, so it was like, I'm going to invite a friend, and then that friend's got to invite two next year. And it was really that kind of blossoming it. But people didn't come to the conversation expecting any kind of offering of service from us. They really were coming to spend time for us to strengthen them, shore them up, offer them an opportunity to rewrite the narrative that they had in their mind about what was possible for their children, to challenge, and they were able to challenge each other in ways that we could never as service providers. You can't say, what are you thinking? But they could to each other and say, I understand that, I've tried that, it didn't work for me, and this is what I learned from that experience. So the conversation was completely different, and I think if we learned anything, it was that families need to own that space. As Linda said, it was being the invisible hands. There was a lot of work that was going on, but we never met and greeted people at the door. Other families did. We never took the podium. Other families did. They owned the space completely. So community living was behind the scenes all of the time. That might kind of give you tidbits to help you with your efforts. And I think it was Leah that said you can't just, or Lori, that you can't necessarily recreate things. You just have to figure out what's going to work for the people in your community, and we do that by listening to them first, and them directing what we're going to offer. It's got to be relevant, right?
I really liked that the speakers were people that had lived the experience too. It's just sort of been a way that I've kind of grown to enjoy learning from. So everyone that did present had told part of their story. So you could picture your story with their story. That helped a lot. And we had a lot of conversations, a lot of time, a lot of, not forced, but it wasn't a quick 2-minute thing. We had a lot of time to work together, and I remember working with Lori once about what the quality, she was thinking like, what could her son do? And then I had ideas that she might not have thought out, or then someone said something to me. So it was like Linda said, they weren't really around, like they were around, but it was definitely led between us. So it kind of gave us, not the power, but confidence that we were being heard, and we wanted to be listen to and had a real say in what was happening.
Service agency bringing a bunch of information.
Right.
to
So
you
there was
guys.
never talk about, for example, say the DSO or how we work that. Like that's a different
Right.
kind of topic. So there was a mother and a daughter, and she told her daughter's story. So we could relate to that and picture, oh, okay, well, her daughter's job is this. That could work for mine or yours or that kind of thing. So it was that life experience, picturing our lives in that as well, that really, really helped in the series.
Much more relatable to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add too, I think one of the things that we have to remember and keep in mind is that the conversation wasn't focused around services or drop-down menus. And when families would sometimes go back home and connect with their local community living, sometimes there was a disconnect with the conversations because people are, wanting to have a conversation around trying to figure out how to really creating what they need in place for the vision that they're holding. And so that's not necessarily, a drop-down menu conversation, and so there can be that disconnect. So there has to be, an understanding and a relationship, like with the organization around what families are having conversations with. Otherwise, we can't learn if we're not listening.
I appreciate what you're saying about what local associations can do because they're perceived to be the service providers in the community. And so if they approach the families, what are they trying to sell me? What is it that they want me to register for, to participate in their services? But the focus, rather, from what I hear, is to encourage people to come out of their shells and their isolation and to be given support to meet and talk to each other and find out that they're not alone and there are others who are having similar experiences and they can benefit from the kind of community that we heard about Nick talk about earlier, to befriend each other and support each other in human ways. And that's facilitated by people who know that that's a good thing to happen without imposing it on them. So I appreciate the subtle distinction, but I think that as local associations, if they're associations and not just agencies that provide services, have some kind of obligation or duty to try to reach out to these families because they're supporting their children after all, and making these supports available to them without implying that they're trying to provide them with a service.
Thank you guys so much for coming, and on behalf of Community Living Ontario, we hope that you'll each accept one of our small gifts as a token of our appreciation for your time and expertise. So thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming. I will give those to you. And so just a reminder that Community Living Ontario is selling raffle tickets for the Anne Stafford Bursary. So the Anne Stafford Bursary is a $1,000 bursary for youth who want to go on to take any courses or education to kind of pursue their interests. So we've had a lot through the Student Links program who've been recipients of that the bursary. So at the reception desk all day, and then people will be kind of wandering around through the lunches and dinner tonight. And also, if you wanted to give us some feedback on their lovely presentation on the conference app, there is a comment section where you can do that as well. So that would be appreciated. And yeah, it's noon, so lunchtime. Thank you so much. That was really